everybody. Welcome to The Truth Will Set You Free. This show is brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Linda Diane Wattley. And again, I got to tell you, I have a guest that you're going to love. You're going to want to stand up and give him an applause. Trust me. Remember what I said. You're going to want to give this man a standing ovation. How you doing, James Poindexter?
I'm doing fine,
I was trying to figure out, where do I start with someone this fascinating? First of all, he's an entrepreneur. He has his own company where he does speaking. He calls it motivational speaking. I call it a little bit more than that. But it is a lot of motivation, but it's also serious business. He's into advocating for adopted children, foster children. He's also into supporting those who believe in them and want to make a difference. He's an author. And one of the things I love about him, I learned early, he is a serious family man. He has a beautiful daughter. And he's just somebody you want to enjoy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
You know, I was thinking now, I'm talking to the man named James Poindexter, but the child, the boy,
yes,
is the one that stole my heart because he was amazing. You have to tell me, at the age of 10, how did you move forward when you finally realized you were home alone and it wasn't just for a night?
You know, it was survival mode. I don't know. I guess I waited for a week for my parents to come back to the house, and they didn't come back. So I just sat in the house, you know, eating and drinking and just hanging around the house, doing the normal things that I did, but just wondering when someone was going to come home. Yeah.
Well, tell me this, because what I also learned that both parents were abusive, correct?
Yes.
And you took some serious beatings. Was that a relief that no one was coming home? Or did you really want them to come home?
Well, you know, so mom left first. They didn't both leave at the same time. So mom left first, and and then she took my sister, I have a sister, and she took her and gave her to our grandmother, and then she went on to New York. And it was just me and my dad. And when me and my dad were alone, he never hit me. It was something weird there. Like, we had probably the best times I ever had with him were when we were just us two. And then I later found out that, you know, he wasn't my sister's father. So there was something going on there, you know. And so, yeah, when he left, I wanted him to come back because we were having a good time at that time. But when mom left, it was weird. It was just, everything changed when she left. I don't know what that was about, but I just had to survive. So I wasn't thinking too much past, you know, how do I eat? I was 10. I couldn't really cook, you know, and so I was just kind of making sandwiches and watching TV. And then finally, after 5 or 6 days, you know, I realized that nobody was coming back. So I got to go find some help. And I was kind of scared to use the phone. I hadn't really used the phone before. So my grandparents lived around the road. So I just walked around the road to their house. And then they took me in for a little while. And that's when I started getting passed around from person to person.
But you also said it was emancipation that got you into the system?
Yeah, so first I went from my parents' house to my grandparents' house on my mom's side. They kept me for a little while, but they were kind of old and couldn't really deal with me. I was kind of a wild kid. And so then I went from their house to the grandparents on my dad's side. And that was when some of the really bad things started happening with other family members, because my grandma, she was pretty abusive too. She had a dog she would get to attack me, that lived there, and was Buster. And whenever I would do something bad, she would shove me out in the yard, and the dog would chase me around the yard and bite me and stuff. And she had these yardsticks that she would chase me around the house, hitting me with, stuff like that. They didn't even give me a bedroom. They had bedrooms upstairs, but I had to sleep on the floor between the fireplace and the dining room table. And that was like my living space. It was this little space on the floor. So, then after a while from that, she gave me to my aunt. And then it was my aunt, my cousin, and me. And then I stayed with them for a while. But from there, I was about 12 at that point. And from there, apparently my dad was communicating with my aunt, but something happened there, and my aunt was trying to convince me to emancipate my parents. And I went into it with the understanding that if I emancipated from my parents, that my grandparents or my aunt would keep me. That was the understanding that I thought I had. So I went to court at 12 and got on the stand and said I didn't want them to be my parents anymore. And I was like, good, now I'll stay with my aunt and my cousin, and that'll be great. And then like 2 months later, they threw me in a shelter. And that's where all that started.
So basically, she had a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that way now, yeah.
And you said you went into a shelter. You didn't go straight into foster care. So how did you go from shelter to foster care?
So it was a mixture of things. So once you emancipate yourself from your family, you become a ward of the state. So at that point, I'm a ward of the state. As soon as I say I don't want them to be my parents anymore, so you're already in the system as soon as you go anywhere other than a family member. I went into a shelter. It was a temporary shelter called Patchwork. And it was temporary, so I could only stay there for a certain amount of time, and they had to keep bringing kids in that needed help and moved other kids on. So I went from shelter to shelter, then to a home, then to a shelter. Like it was a mix. Sometimes I would go to shelter, sometimes I would go to homes. It just depended on, if the parent wanted to keep me. Most of the time they didn't. So, and foster care in itself is temporary. Adoption is permanent, and legal guardianship is permanent. But foster care is usually temporary. People don't usually keep kids, for an extended period of time in foster care. You're just staying there either until they can find you a permanent home or you reunite with your family. So you're kind of staying around.
And you said that shelter was just like being in a prison.
Yeah, so the different shelters, man, different things happen at the different shelters. But some things happen at all of them that are the same. And one of them is initiation. So like the first night you're there, usually all the kids will sneak to your room and beat you up. They want to see how tough you are. So you'll get jumped by like 6-7 people, and they just want to test you out, and a lot of times I had to, because I was 10 when I entered. So I was 12 when I entered the shelter, but I'm still the smallest kid and the youngest kid in most of these places. So, I have to fend for myself because there's staff there, but the staff don't see everything. So, if I had cool toys, they would take them. Or if I had food, they would take it, and so I had to fight to keep my stuff. Well, at first I didn't understand. At first I was heavily manipulated by the older kids who would just get me to do stupid things because they thought it was funny. But then after a while, they started not to like me because being young and hanging out with older kids isn't always a good thing. We had some situations. I'll give you one. Like there was a time when the older kids could watch like rated R movies, and if I with a staff member, but then I will come downstairs because I want to hang out with everybody else. And if I come downstairs and I'm 12 or 13, they can't watch that movie because I'm too young. So what happened was one time they were watching a movie and I came downstairs and I didn't know this rule. I didn't know nothing about this. So I come downstairs with my toys and I'm just trying to sit off in the corner and just kind of be around everybody else. I didn't want to be by myself. Well, the staff member cut the movie off and left. And so the kids got mad at me and they threw me in a dumpster. And so, yeah, so like these kind of things happen often when I was real small because I couldn't fight back. So what it became was that I either had to take it and keep being weak, or start being aggressive and doing something about it. So I chose to be aggressive. So I started to be honest, I started a stabbing spree. I started stabbing people, and I started hitting people with everything I could. And people come near me, I would take they would give us plastic silverware a lot. So I would take like a spoon and break it, and it would have a sharp edge, and I would just keep it in my hand all the time. So if somebody came near my plate or near my zone, I would stab them wherever I could. Or I'd try to cut them across the face, because cutting somebody across the face, if everybody knows who did it, it scares everybody else.
And you said you went through a period of about, 20 foster homes?
21 homes and shelters, yeah.
And then something finally happened.
Yeah, 15, which is rare because people don't want teenagers. So at 15, I was taken out of the last shelter that I was in and placed with the Griffiths, and they told me, like, yeah, we're not going to send you away. It's really, if you mess this up, it's really on you. Like, you can stay here, but it's going to be on how you do. It's not going to be based on our thinking. We're taking you in to keep you. You're about to be a man. You're 15. And so I went there, and I mean, they were straight. My dad was a military dad, so he kind of has a very black and white attitude about everything, and then mom was the buffer, because dad was very harsh sometimes in his views, so mom would kind of buff it out somewhat in between. But the funny thing is that mom was the one who didn't want me, and dad was the one who did. But as the time went by, it was me and mom that got super close. Me and dad that kind of just stayed kind of a man-to-man kind of deal. But yeah, mom didn't think it was a good idea to take an older kid. She was into like babies and toddlers and things. And dad convinced her to just give him a chance. And then and now like I'm she doesn't even call me foster anything. Like, I'm her son and she's my mom. So we got really close.
So tell me this, being that you had to be so defensive all the time, how was you able to process that you can accept good and relax?
Whenever I would go into somebody's home, I was usually able to calm down. It was usually not until something else happened that caused me to get kicked out of that home. So, for example, like, as long as I was out of a shelter, I felt relief. But the problem was that I would go into a home, and let's say they had a biological kid. So they would show that kid a little favoritism, like more allowance, or I don't know, the bigger plate or the better clothes or something. And then that would cause me to react, And so that was probably the most common thing. Was a lot of the times I would go into a home, and in that home they would have another kid, and that kid either was their kid or another foster kid that they were already close with, and they would show favoritism to that kid, and then that would cause me to react somehow toward that kid, or show that I wasn't happy about it somehow. And so with this family, it was interesting. So dad had a son, but he was not mom's son. So mom couldn't have kids. She never could have kids. So, and the son didn't really call her mom because he knew his mom. So she really didn't have a kid. So I became her kid. And so that's kind of how that worked out. It was kind of like I was dad's son and I was mom's son. And then, so it kind of worked out like that.
It balanced out some kind of way. Also, they both offered you something that helped you focus in your energy and your thought processing, because you was already naturally pretty smart.
Yeah. So it was weird. That was one of the weird things that I never can figure out is all through school, and I went to 6 junior highs and 5 high schools, but I still always made good grades. It was like the only thing that I could focus on that gave me a little bit of peace. But they got me into ROTC and martial arts. And so my dad did not want me to take martial arts. He didn't. He said, you're already aggressive. You've got this long rap sheet of people you've stabbed and hit and hurt. And there's no point in teaching you how to be better at fighting than you already are. You should probably just come here and chill out. But mom had a different opinion. And so mom is she is one of 9 kids. She's the oldest of 9. And I guess some of her family members had done martial arts. So she was kind of aware of the mental part of martial arts, and dad wasn't aware of that. And so in his view, me learning martial arts was kind of a threat. Whereas in her view, it was like, he needs an outlet, and this is a good outlet. And so when they presented it to the social workers, the social worker thought it was a good idea too. And so I told my dad, later I found out, now that I'm married, that when you're arguing with your wife about something, you're going to lose. So you just got to go with it. You just got to go with it. You say, yes, dear, and move on. So they won. So mom already had an idea of where she wanted me to go. There were a bunch of schools in town. But the really cool thing they did, dad used it. He always had a plan. Dad always had a plan. That's how I knew he was in the military. He was always thinking, like, how can I capitalize on this moment? So he said, you know what? I don't really want you to take martial arts, but if you're going to do it, then you're going to have to get a job to pay for it. I had never had a job. So, that started with cutting grass and raking leaves and things that I could do until I could get actual employment, because I was kind of young. And then once I could, and then he drove me around, and we went and found a job. And then so he used martial arts to get me working. And so the martial arts story is kind of interesting. So we looked at different schools. Me and my dad traveled. There were a bunch of kung fu and karate schools all in the area. At that time, karate and kung fu were still a big deal. And we would sit and watch a class. Dad would go talk to the instructor, and then we'd go home. What'd you think? I don't know. It's all the same to me. I don't know. They're kicking, punching, making noises. It's cool. But the Fairmont Karate Academy. So the teacher there, Ralph Sumlin, he's in the Hall of Fame for martial arts. He was 70 years old. You look at him, he like somebody's grandpa, walk with a limp. You would never know this guy's a 5th degree black belt. You would never know in the street. You would never know. And I guess they had a talk. And so, long story short, when I joined the school, he already knew my entire story upon joining the school. So he had a plan in mind as soon as I walked in. So I have to tell you the funny introduction that happened, because it was really interesting. I had never had to show such humility, So dad drops me off at the school, and it's up some stairs. So I get out, and I have my bag, and I'm pretty cocky. I have been fighting since I was 10. I've been beating up people for years, no problem, So I walked into this place. I kind of shoved the door open. I was like, ha ha, I'm here. I'm like, yeah, man, I'll get my black belt in like 3 weeks, no problem, no problem. So I just walked on in with my bag, tossed my bag over in the corner, like, where do I start, man? Where do I start? No, sir, that did not fly in that place. So when I walked in, I realized real quick it was all adults. There were no kids in that class. I was the youngest. I was 16 at that point, and I was the youngest kid in there. So the sensei, he's standing there, and he's got all the students punching. So when I walked in with my cocky self, tossed the door open, tossing my bag in the corner, everybody just stopped. It was complete silence. Everyone just stopped. And they looked at him. They didn't even look at me. They looked at him. So he told them all, sit down. Looked at me. Who are you? I said, I'm James, man. I'm the man. Right? And he said, well, James the man, you bow before you come in here. So walk out the door, back down the steps, out into the street, and come back up here and start over. And he said, you better walk out to the street, because I'm going to be looking out the window. I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. Okay. So I start to walk out, get your bag to start all the way over. So I went and got my bag, walked out the door, down the steps, out into the street. I'm like, man, he ain't even looking. I looked up. Yes, he was looking. He was out the window looking. Like, come on back in. Come on back in. So I'm like, okay, I better take this guy pretty serious. He had everybody shut down. Everybody stopped, sat down on his command, and he just told me to go outside. So I don't want to cause no problems with this guy. So walk up the steps, open the door, bow. Came in, stood there, said, go in there and change, and then come out and get in this corner. I realized at this point he had a aura. He had a commanding presence, you know. So I just felt I could get a good beat on people, you know, and I just felt I better listen to this guy because he has the respect of all these people older than me. They might all kick my butt, so I better just listen to this guy real humbly. So I put on my outfit, came out in the corner. He came over, he said, you're going to learn how to punch and kick before you can come out onto the floor with the rest of the students. So stay here and keep throwing punches and kicks until I tell you to stop. And I was like, all right. So I started, he showed me how to do it. Punches, couple front kicks. He walked off. And I'm thinking he's not paying attention. He's teaching his other students, and my arms are getting tired and my legs hurt. Like, what is this? You know, little did I know that he was teaching his students, he was still counting every punch I threw. Somehow, I do not know how he was doing this, but he walked back over to me and he said, finally, you've thrown 100 punches and 100 kicks, come out onto the floor. Like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know? So, yeah, so I came out onto the floor. It was all a tactic to get me tired. This was really interesting situation. So he told everyone, sit down. Then he gets some gloves, throws them at me, says, put these on. I'm like, what? No way. So he says, I hear you're a tough guy. And I hear that you beat people up. And you think that you're some kind of big-time fighter. Is that true? I'm like, man, I'll beat the sleeves off you. No problem. This is what I said. Right? Because I'm trying to be tough. I don't want to lose. I don't want to look weak in front of all these people. So even though I felt the respect, I was like, man, I can't just let him punk me. This is how I live. You don't let no one punk you. So he said, okay, tough guy, come on. 3 minutes. So they start the clock. And I said, in ultimate dumbness, the dumbest statement I think I said for the next 10 minutes. I was like, are you sure you want some of this? Oh boy, the next 3 minutes were the worst 3 minutes of my life. Man, he said, come on. So I rushed him. I started throwing punches. I hit all air. I still now, this is 20 years later, I still can't tell you how I missed him that many times. I threw so many punches, I don't know how I did not hit him, not even once. So I'm throwing all these punches. Next thing you know, I'm on the ground. I don't know how I got there. I just know I was there. So I'm laying on the floor, on my face. He walks up, bends down, goes, get up. All right, so I get up, rushed him again. Boom, boom, boom. Missing all of them. Missed every punch. End up on the ground again. Get up. We went through this about 7 times where I just kept rushing him. At some point, I got so mad that I was just trying to grab him. Just something. I just wanted to get hold to him just to feel like I won, you know. I couldn't even grab him. This guy's 70. I couldn't grab him. So finally, I broke down, started crying. I couldn't hit him. I couldn't touch him. I couldn't grab him. I couldn't do nothing. I even one time tried to be sneaky when I was on the ground and he was standing near me. I tried to like smash his toe, and he even moved his foot. I didn't even hit his toe. So finally, after a whole lot of crying, I just laid there. I was in a heap, man. I was like, God, I can't hit this guy, and tears is coming. And he said, "Are you done yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm done. I can't hit him. What am I supposed to do?" So he said, "Now we can teach you something." And so that was the plan, was to completely break me, and then reform me. And
That was
so,
one of the best things that ever happened to you.
yeah, well, what was funny was he said, now we can teach you. And then the rest of that sentence, come back tomorrow and we'll see if we can, and then we'll get started. And later, years later, he told me he doubted I would come back. It was like, usually when someone goes through something that embarrassing in front of all those people, there are probably 20 people there. Just saw me just get whooped completely. After talking a bunch, running my mouth, said most students don't come back after that. They leave and they just don't come back. But the funny thing is that the reason why I came back is because I wanted to beat him up.
The thing about it is you made it as far as you could go with something like that. Was you American team, USA team?
Yeah, so what happened was, so he started teaching me and he got me into some tournaments, and I won my first tournament in a month. And so it was really clear that I had some kind of skill there. So, man, after a couple of years, I had won 7 national championships. Then I got on the USA team. I won the team trials. Then I went to Jamaica and I won the world championship. And then the next year, I took silver in the World Cup and silver in the Goodwill Games. But I was ranked #1 in the world for 3 years in karate.
Wow.
And
But the thing about it too, that's why I say the more I listen to you and the things that I've learned, that I've read about you, it's like you had a destiny from birth. Because you look at every person involved and every platform that you've mentioned, it was a catalyst to something better and greater. Just like with you winning all these different events with this karate, you was able to speak sometime in front of people.
yeah, so that was the huge thing, was that all of this was happening while I was still in foster care. So because of the turnaround, because this was supposed to be part of my anger management program. So this was just supposed to be like some outlet for me just to go when I'm frustrated and do. Nobody thought it was going to get this big, So since it did, the foster care agency, they were called the National Youth Advocate Program. They decided to support me, and so they were helping to fund my trips, and I got to go speak at a bunch of events. I was picked as a youth ambassador, and I got to speak for Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and I got to speak at some national conferences where I'm talking in front of 3,000 people just about the change and how it can happen. And I even spoke for a lady who was running for office on her campaign. One of her things was foster care, so I got to speak. I forgot that lady's name though. It's been a lot of years, but I really got to do a lot, and I'm still doing a lot. Like, I shelved it for a while. I did it for a little bit when I was in my early 20s. Then I stopped because I went to college, and then after I graduated, I moved to go pro, and now I'm starting up with speaking again. So it never left. It was something that I always wanted to do. Just kind of.
You started your own business, isn't that what it's about? You're speaking?
Yeah, so it's funny because speaking's kind of in my pedigree. My father and my grandfather were both preachers. So talking is kind of a thing with us. and
Your father was a minister?
He had a preacher certificate. He went to a Bible college and got his certificate as a preacher. I have it. I actually have it somewhere. But my grandfather had his own church and everything.
Okay, which father are you actually talking about?
My biological father, the one that hit me all the time.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So did that affect your perception of God?
Yes, greatly. Yes. Yeah,
Where did you place it?
I was lost for a long time. I still sometimes question things. It wasn't just that though. So like at the time, I didn't know about my dad having a preacher certificate till many years later. But my grandfather, who was a preacher, and his wife was the one who had dogs attacking me and stuff. So I couldn't. That was kind of the one that was weird. But later, which I have never talked about too much what has happened after foster care, but like to get married to my wife, I had to become Catholic, and like I didn't think that was very cool. Just to marry us, I had to be their religion. Like, there's so many things about religion that just have caused me lots of confusion. But also when I was in those shelters, and I sort of felt like when people didn't have an answer for why I couldn't find a home or why people didn't want me or why I felt the way I felt, they would always just say, pray, 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 you know. And for me, when I first would hear it, I would pray because I thought that was the answer. But then when nothing was happening, I felt like it was just everyone's excuse because they didn't have nothing else to say. And so, yeah, I was highly confused about that.
Because I noticed you never used that term, God or Jesus or, you know, anything pertaining to Christianity. I was like, but he is so sound and empowered with a spirit.
Well, it isn't that. I believe in the Creator. I do. But I just, I don't necessarily believe in particular religions like Baptist, Methodist, Catholic. I don't really believe in that because I don't think Jesus was a religion. He helped everyone equally. In the Bible, he didn't say, oh, if you're a Catholic, I'm going to help you, but if you're not, then I won't. He didn't say that. He helped everyone that came to him. So that's kind of my view on that particular situation.
Okay. Yeah, and then too, you mentioned your wife, you said she was from Iraq?
Yeah, she's from Iraq, but she's not Muslim. She's Catholic. They're called Chaldeans. They're Arabic people who are Christian. There's a very small pocket of them in Iraq. It's like 2% of the population.
And you said that, I remember reading where they usually don't marry outside of their family or their culture.
Oh, yes. That's a whole, yeah. We dated for 6 years undercover.
Yeah.
We had to hide it. And then she lost her family. She had to choose between me or them. They gave her an ultimatum. And it was pretty hypocritical because they said, you can date him forever, just don't marry him. Was what they told her. And that didn't make any sense. I'm like, wow, so they don't want her to marry me because I'm black, but so she can date me forever as long as I don't marry her. What kind of sense does that make? But they're Catholics though. They're Catholics who we got married in the same church they go to.
That's what I was trying to figure out. How was you able to end up with a priest that did it because he knew it was contrary to what they do?
Yeah, so that was an interesting situation as well. We wanted to get him to convince her mom to allow the situation. Her dad had already passed, so it was just her mom and her brothers. But they were very racist, and they getting them to approve it was going to be like pulling teeth because they didn't want to do that. So we thought that if we went through her church and I got baptized as a Catholic through her church, that would somehow help the situation. That was her idea, so I went with it because I wanted to be with her, so I didn't care. I'll do what it takes to be with you, B. And if you think this is what's going to help you keep everyone together, then I'm going to do it. And because she thought the glue between me and them was the priest. And so when we went to the church, I got baptized, and then later I told him my intentions with her, and we asked him to get involved because all of the Arabic folks that go to his church, he's a big deal. He's a big deal to them. So they all go to his church, all of them. So his voice mattered, you know. So we were trying to get him to kind of say something for us on our behalf, and you know he wouldn't. So he said, like, they have to accept it because you're both Catholics. So there's nothing they can do. if you're both Catholic,
Wow.
they can't say anything. They just have to accept it. And so he wouldn't go. He said they'll accept it. He was so confident they'll accept it once they realize you're Catholic. And I have both your certificates right here, and they have to accept that. They didn't accept it. They didn't come to the wedding. She lost him. She hasn't spoke to him since she married me.
So how is she? Is she okay?
She thinks about him quite a bit. It's very hard it's one of my challenges is trying to make her believe, you know, that what she did was right, because the way she was raised in a box just with them only, you know, in their culture. And what they're taught is that outsiders are bad and don't mess with outsiders too much. And they do arranged marriages and that are approved by both families and things like that. So her going out on her own is kind of against what they do, which makes you a bad person. And so when she married me, they called her all kind of names, and she tried to call her mother like shortly. Well, what happened was she had to run away to my house. So the way the story go, we decided to tell the mom that we were going to be together. And I told her this probably wasn't a good idea, that you probably should come to my house first before you tell her, or they might do something very, very bad. Because in Iraq, it's called honor killings. You can kill someone who goes against the family, and it's okay. You don't even go to prison for it. So I was scared they might send her back to Iraq and have her killed or something, you know, and her brother had already threatened her with a gun before for having a black friend. So what happened was her sisters knew about us the whole time. She has two sisters. They knew about me, but they didn't snitch on her because they thought, well, she came here when she was 18, so she became Americanized. So she's just having fun with Americans, but when it's time to marry, she'll come back to us like we tell her to do, like we did. But the difference was they came here in their 30s and they immediately married as soon as they got here. Like they were here for 2 days and married someone. Whereas she came here at 18, got a job, went to college, had some parties, had some fun, met Americans, and became Americanized. So it was a whole different deal for her. And while we dated, they didn't say anything. But for some reason, they believed that she would come back to them after 4, 5, 6 years. Like, what do you think is happening in that amount of time? You think we're not going to be together after 4, 5, 6 years? And so when she finally told her sister she was serious about marrying me, we went to church. We were going to, you got to take these marriage classes in Catholic religion. You got to take marriage classes before you get married. So we started going to marriage classes. And the marriage classes were group classes with other people who were getting married. So she was very scared because she might know some of the other people there who might snitch on her to her mom. It's a small community. And I told her, and I was correct, I said, they're not going to snitch on you. They don't care. They're thinking about themselves. Who's going to snitch on you is going to be your sisters when you tell them you're serious. The same day I said that, the same day, not 2 hours later, she said, yeah, we're in marriage classes. 2 hours later, her mom is calling her home. And I'm like, yep, they snitched on you. I told you that was going to happen. When she got home, her mom went bonkers on her about everything. Just, I heard you're with a black guy. How could you do this? You're destroying the family name. This is horrible. How can we accept that? This is going to make us all look bad. How could you do this to us? And they told her, you're in prison now. You're never coming out of your room. You're not going to work. You're not going to school. You're not doing nothing no more. We're going to watch you 24 hours a day. You're not going anywhere. And I told her, well, they got to let her go to work. So I told her, listen, go to work, then come to my house. That's the end of it. Luckily, because we kind of knew this may happen, she had been bringing her stuff to my house slowly over about a year. She had been bringing clothes over, things she would need. Not everything, because she didn't want it to look like, why is your room getting so empty? But just little small things. So she had enough stuff in my house to come over and not and be okay. So she did. She came to my house, and when she came, they started calling her, trying to figure out where she was, and I had to change her number, and yeah, that was rough. Then she tried to call her mom after we got married, and that phone call was a rough one, man. Her mom said to her, like, she said, I hope you die of cancer. She said, I wish I could set you on fire. I hope you die like a dog in the street. I should let your brother kill you. Just, she said all these terrible things to her. And, you know, it was bad.
But, you know, that's why I say it seemed like to me your life was so destined, because it keeps coming back to family and family distortion and, you know, dysfunction, lack of trust. I mean, it's like you came full circle, and you were so qualified to set somebody free. You was qualified to give her more of a life than she was living as a collective like a tribal life. You gave her a chance to have a beautiful life because y'all have a beautiful family, a beautiful daughter. You have been to hell and back as far as people and family members. People represent God. And, you know, you some kind of way, you know what love is. And you know what she was captured in was not love. She may not know, but it was what she knew.
Yeah.
Even though God is not spoken of too often, but God had a greater plan for both of you. Look how he brought you two together. And it has something to do with family dysfunction.
It's very
and
funny.
You was the catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah.
That he used. He loved her so much that he didn't want her to live that limited life.
I try.
That's why I say you're just amazing. I mean, and then on top of that, you started your own business. And you never forgot the suffering. Not only you went through in those shelters and in foster care, but with people that surrounded you went through. That you go out and you speak and you offer, you know, tools to help these people. And, you know, people think that we really finished with you, but you know what? You're author. It wasn't enough for you to speak.
Yeah.
In case you don't be there, you're handing them a tool. Tell them about that book.
Yeah, so the book is called Your Amazing Itty Bitty Foster and Adoptive Parent Guide. And that book it's actually up now on iTunes and Amazon and stuff. You can get it now. But that book it's pretty much my and some other foster kids steps that we give, 15 steps on how to connect between parents and teens. And I picked teens because 15 is when I found the parents who connected with me. So we kind of go through the steps that will help a parent and a teen build a good relationship, because most parents don't want teens, they want babies. And they always want babies because they can mold them and shape them the way they want to. They think teens are the way they are, and that's it. You can't change them. But you can, though, because I was one way and I changed. But you just got to connect correctly. And every kid needs something different. See, I told you my dad was a military dad.
Right.
He was kind of strict, but that was what I needed, though. So, you know, the way he talked to me, I couldn't use fluff. People will fluff with me. Oh, James, this is the way this is. You have to, why would this is the better way. I don't work like that. My dad, like, look, this is how it is. You do it this way or you're grounded, or you do it this way or this doesn't work. But everything he said related to my life somehow. Like, if I didn't do laundry, well, if you don't do laundry, then you don't have clean clothes. And how are you going to go to school smelling bad? Like, the things he would say, he would always relate them to something bigger, you know? So it made sense. He didn't just tell me, do it because I said do it. You know, he would say, do it because I said do it, but for this reason. And so the steps that I give in the book are steps on how to connect, you know, how to, and these are, they'll work for most. It may not work for all. Something will work for all. Something in there will work for everybody. It's really a parenting book. It's not just foster care and adoption.
No.
Anyone who has a teenager can take this book and use it.
I was getting ready to say, you know, I read the book, and the thing that I really like about the book is very powerful, but yet it's written in such simplicity that you will get it and you will be easily able to connect, like you said. And my bottom line with that book, it took it out of statistic. A child wasn't a statistic. By the time they finished reading your book, they was a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I recall about the book. It made those children individuals. They were a person.
Yeah.
And the way you wrote it, it's like, I wish it had came out so many centuries ago. Because so many souls could have been saved from so much torture and lack of love and caring, you know, because a lot of people are afraid of foster children.
Yeah.
They don't understand, you know, their behavior patterns and how to react to things, but yet they really want to take a chance, but they get all these frightening stories, you know. But if somebody would have had that book that you wrote, it could have made a huge difference as far as the foster care foundation. They would realize that they're human. They're reacting just like people with PTSD. They're no different. They're reacting. They're normal.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said, just be consistent and patient and honest.
It really comes down to that.
Excellent book. Excellent book.
Yeah.
The government needs that book.
I hope they buy it.
And if somebody want to get in touch with you, James, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so if they want me to speak, my website is jameshpoindexter.com and also inspiredtosuccess.com. Both URLs go to the same website. And I'll give you my phone number is 858-848-7970. And my email is jhbrands@inspiredtosuccess.com. But you can go to the contact page on my website and fill it out, and it will come to my email.
And James, you are on the Truth Will Set You Free show.
Yes.
Give us a truth that we can always remember you by.
Yes, thank you. It's nice. It's nice.
We want a truth that we can walk away with that you carry with you.
A truth that I carry with me. I guess I know one that I do. It's there's a quote that I use a lot. I think it was Ford that said it, but it's the truth also. You can do it if you choose to. So basically, that's very simple, right? If you think you can, if you think you can't, you're right. This is the quote. So it's all mindset. Basically, you just got to choose to be better than you are. And I live by that. Like, it doesn't matter how down you are, because I was down, but I still made it up.
Oh, yes.
You don't have to be stuck down. You can choose to be up, but it's a mental change. You have to change it.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out, spending time with us today.
Thanks. I like it. It's cool.
Oh, it was awesome. And I wish you the best. And that book, I wanted to get to those institutions that don't have anything to work with, because they need a refreshment. They need something that's simple. And you know what? You didn't drag it out. You got to your bottom lines. You know, like, I feel like everybody should read that book that's dealing with the foster and adopted children.
Yes.
Because you know what? Sometimes you just don't know. And so you live in fear. Mm-hmm. And if you can take fear out of something, you can see the beauty you can have with another person that's different than you.
That's good. See, that's good. That's true.
That's what you bring. And I just like, wow. Thank you for writing that book. Tell them that title again.
So it's called Your Amazing Itty Bitty Foster and Adoptive Parent Guide. It's called Itty Bitty because it's short. It's about 45 pages.
Right. That's what it is.
Short. Very short book.
And it's so meaningful and it makes so much sense. The fundamentals is just unbelievably like, wow, why didn't I see that?
Yeah.
Because it's different assumption.
Yeah. Yep.
And why I say you deserve a standing ovation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Why do I say that? Because you just kept moving forward and you kept blessing people once you got yourself grounded.
Yeah.
You immediately started blessing people.
Yeah,
I still say that little angel wife of yours, God wanted more for her. That's why you had to come into her life. And you had to understand what she's feeling and experiencing so that you can bond with her. You're not just saying, oh, I get it. No, you got it.
Yeah.
You understand her alienation from her family, but you also know it's unjust and she didn't do anything wrong. You're not saying it to be saying it.
Right.
And you also let her know she'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
That beautiful family will be just fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.